So, welcome to this evening's webinar about overcoming insomnia. And I've run this webinar really as a response to all the messages and comments that I am seeing on social media about dentists and members of the team that are really struggling at the moment not being able to sleep. And it's really not surprising. So, first of all, I just want to say that your future needs attention today. And so I know that there's an awful lot of uncertainty. I know that you are concerned about work, money, family, finances, how to manage your patients. I know as dentists, we really, really care about our patients. So if they can't get access to treatment, particularly if they're in pain, we feel as if we're really letting them down. So, and we don't know how long this period is going to exist for. And we do know at some point that we will come out of it. And it's my desire for everybody to be in a stronger position when we come back out of it than we were when we went into it. And that's why I think that your success needs your attention today. And I know that dentists are really struggling with anxiety, which is why I'm doing this webinar this evening. And for others that either have chosen not to be on the webinar or can't be there for whatever reason, I just want to let you know that I am making myself available free of charge to people, dentists, other members of the dental team, even your friends and family, that if you need somebody to talk to, you need some help, please just ring me. And I'm here to help and support you to be that listening ear that you want. So my number's at the bottom of the screen, 07989 757 884. I suggest you write it down. And if at some point in the near, medium, or far future that you need some help, just give me a ring. And my commitment at the moment is to give you that support free of charge. So, as I've mentioned to some of the people here that were just ahead of the call, what I'm choosing to call this period that we're in is tools down, skills up. Because every situation, actually, it's more about how we approach it rather than the situation itself. And out of every adversity, there is opportunity. And we do need to be putting on the right pairs of spectacles so that we can see the opportunities that are out there for us. And one of the most amazing opportunities at this time is that you have time. You have time to develop your skills, to learn more about yourself, to learn about the practice. And for if any of you have ever said in the past, oh, I'd love to do X, Y, and Z as part of your personal professional development, and I don't have time, now is probably the time. And certainly business coaches and trainers that I know are making stuff available to you, often free, very inexpensively, just so that you can utilize this time and be productive in your days. Excuse me, that's not a COVID cough, I've got a dry throat cough. So who am I? My name's Dr. Jane Naleen. I am a business coach, trainer and mentor, and I'm also a dentist. So when I'm coaching, actually, it's my job not to know the answers. It's my job to ask the questions so you as clients can find the answers yourself, because your answers may be different to your colleagues or other practices down the road, practices in a different town. So coaching is about awareness, it's about accountability, it's about helping you make better decisions. When I'm a trainer, I'm teaching you stuff that you don't know. And I know that there's many people on this call that I've never met before today. And my background is as a dentist. I bought a practice when was very young. I had probably been qualified only 4 years and did what I thought I was supposed to do. And I recruited a very well qualified, well connected practice manager, and I got on with the dentistry. After a while of the practice being phenomenally organized and loan working agreements and everything color coded and protocols and everything, it became aware that money was going missing from the practice, significant amounts of money going missing from the practice. So, for those of you in the situation where you know that you are going to have to build your practice up from the bare roots once again, I know I've been there, I've done it. And so I needed to work with a coach and a trainer to teach me how to do that, because at dental school, we're not taught how to run a business. So there will be an awful lot of stuff to do with the business side of dentistry that you don't know. Yeah, there's loads of stuff clinically that you need trainers for. You need to go and see the right people. I'm not a clinical trainer. I am a trainer to do with business skills, mindset, the non-clinical aspect of it. And when I'm mentoring, I'm sharing my personal experience and the experience of others, obviously confidentially. But my big caveat to mentoring is just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's the right decision or will work for you. So that's where coaching and coaching combined with training, I think, is really, really powerful, much more powerful than mentoring. So, anyway, let's move on. Insomnia. You're all here because at some level you're experiencing sleepless nights and insomnia. And let's look at the impact of what insomnia has on us. And for many people, it makes them grumpy. They start to make mistakes. Performance levels goes down, and that includes decision making. We often make much less good quality decisions when we're tired. We make poor decisions, and we often get ourselves into this spiral of decline. Pessimism, frustration, irritation, impatience, worry, doubt, rage, anger, jealousy, hatred, insecurity, guilt, powerlessness. And it would not come as any great surprise to me to learn that many of you on this call are at some point over the last couple of weeks either moving up or down this spiral of decline. But it has health issues. Insomnia is often associated with obesity, and any of you that are involved in providing obstructive sleep apnea treatment and devices will know that once you get the sleep apnea sorted, how much weight your patients lose. Also, insomnia is associated with heart disease. And again, we know that from obstructive sleep apnea patients, they are much more likely to have cardiac arrests. And when we can sleep properly, our risk of heart disease goes down. And then there's the condition diabetes. It's linked to pretty much everything. So, again, associated with insomnia, our risk of insulin resistance and diabetes goes up. So, some of you are probably experiencing at least some of these sorts of things. And I know you've all sent me a list because some of the stuff is slightly different. But what we want for you is that we want for you to be able to sleep like a baby. So rather than being grumpy, we want you to be happy. In much of what's going on, we can't change the situation, but we do know that we will be able to change your response to this situation, and that's what's key. We want you to be able to do things correctly because you've got all your faculties aware to you, and we want your performance to continue to improve and go up. But whilst you might not be at work, performance can be measured in many different ways. And at the moment, I hope that performance, many of you are measuring in the quality of your relationships. Now you're at home with your friends and well, you're certainly your family. So yeah, when we've got a great amount of sleep, we are able to make, excuse me, I'm just going to have another slurp of my drink, great decisions. And instead of being on a spiral of decline, we can be in a spiral of incline, of positivity, intentment, having beliefs and optimism, happiness, enthusiasm. We can have some eagerness and passion, empowerment, love, joy, and freedom. And the great thing is that we can have these responses even in the midst of the COVID situation, because it's our response to it that is in our control. And obviously, we want for you to be slim, fit, and healthy, have a healthy heart, and really healthy blood sugar levels. So, for you, it would be really useful for you to think about, and I know for some of you, you've already answered these questions, is that what are your biggest challenges relating to lack of sleep? What impact are they having on your life? And if you do nothing and you continue not to be able to sleep, what impact will it continue to have? So I will leave you to answer those questions in your own time. So the things that I'm going to share with you tonight is that much like in medicine, there isn't a magic pill. There is not one medication that works for every single patient. So if you've, I know you don't treat people with heart disease, but for our medical colleagues, they know that they've got a patient that comes in with heart disease and they've got a plethora of meds that they can choose from. And it's about finding the right medication for that patient to manage their symptoms and their side effects. So what I'm going to share with you is a number of different things. And really honest, there isn't one magic key that I can tell you this evening that you'll go, fantastic. From here on in, I'm going to have perfect sleep-free nights. This is about you finding out which is the key that works for you. And if you really are struggling, it's about weighting the balance. So I'm going to share a number of different strategies and ideas. And I'm going to suggest that rather than just taking one idea and using that, actually it would probably be quite useful if you incorporated as many of these different strategies as possible. So let's make a start. So for those of you on the call that have worked with me before will know that I love to do my training through using mnemonics. So I think they're useful. They help you remember. So tonight's mnemonic is all about sleep. How do we help you sleep? So the first thing for our S stands for about sleep habits. And it's about developing good sleep habits. So what have we got as good sleep habits? So the first one will come as no great surprise to you, is you need to cut out the caffeine. We know from what we've been told, we also know from our experiences that caffeine keeps us awake. We use it as a stimulant to wake us up. So the thing about caffeine, it does stay in your blood for about 6 to 8 hours. So if you're struggling to go to sleep, you certainly need to be cutting the caffeine out after lunch and ideally cutting it out together. Now, as when I ran my practice, I had the recognition that the quality of my decisions was linked to my consumption of caffeine. And when I was drinking coffee, I was wired and made impulsive, poor quality decisions. So I made the decision to stop drinking coffee and caffeine. And initially, I found it difficult. And I'm an NLP master practitioner. And one day I got so fed up that I couldn't give up caffeine through sheer willpower that I gave it over to my unconscious to give up the caffeine. And I haven't touched caffeine in any form in 15 years. And I feel so much better for it. It was just phenomenal to the quality of the improvement of the decisions that I'm making and the quality of my sleep. So, for some of you that are saying that you are worried about the decisions that you're making, please just cut out the caffeine. That's coffee, tea, Red Bull, chocolate. You know where it all is. And then again, it's going to come as no great surprise. I'm going to suggest that if you want to improve the quality of your sleep, you need to cut out the alcohol. Because we know that alcohol is a stimulant. And the last thing you want is, if you want to go to sleep, is to be stimulated. So I know it's been interesting that off licenses, I understand, are considered a key service in this COVID situation. I find that curious because I don't think anybody really needs alcohol. And again, that's something that I have chosen to give up to support a friend, and it is now knocking on for 18 months since I've had any alcohol at all. And I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm not some sort of sanctimonious person, but I'm suggesting to you, I want to suggest to you that it's possible. And for me to give up alcohol for 18 months is an achievement, because when I was a practice owner, being really honest and being really vulnerable, and this is again another style of my teaching and my coaching, is I will share the truth about myself, is that I was drinking a bottle of wine a night because that was my default position, my stress release. And let me just tell you, it didn't work. So if you would like a good night's sleep, I really am going to encourage you to cut down or cut out your alcohol consumption and notice the difference. And then we've got eating early. So again, this is something that the studies show, that people who eat late, food sits on their stomach and they can't sleep. Also, I mean, we're here talking about insomnia, not weight particularly. But again, if you don't want to carry excess weight, again, that's another thing, eating earlier. And I fully recognize that when we're busy in the practices and we've got surgeries, we often don't get home until quite late. We often have very short lunch breaks. And so actually that becomes a societal norm to eat late when we get back from work. Hopefully now you've got an opportunity to do things differently. For those of you that are at home with children or at home, maybe alone, this is an opportunity to develop new and healthier rituals. And I'm going to suggest that if you would like to sleep better, you may want to consider eating your main meal at lunchtime and a snack probably no later than 6, outside 7 o'clock. And I'm not giving you these pieces of advice and saying you must do this. With coaching, it's really much about, as I said, awareness. And I suggest you try these things and notice the difference. And when I say try them, what I mean is experiment with them for at least a couple of weeks. But certainly when you're giving up the caffeine and the alcohol, you may find that you've got to go through some form of cold turkey to get rid of all that stuff from your system. So new habits. And when we're talking about eating early, also drinking early. And this is not just alcohol, this is normal liquids. And obviously, we've talked about giving up tea and coffee. But you'll often find that if you start drinking late, that you might get woken up in the middle of the night because you've got an urge to go to the toilet. So if you can make sure that you're really hydrated during the day, and then 1 or 2 hours before you go to bed, that you then just reduce your fluid intake, and hopefully you then won't be woken up in the middle of the night and you have a much better night's sleep. Hopefully there's nobody on the call here that's smokers. If you are, and I always include vaping in as well as smoking, again, smoking, just don't do it. There's so many reasons, you know them all. Just don't do it. And again, if you are a smoker and you would like to give up, please don't be sucked into the hallucinogenic, or not the hallucinogenic, the hypnotic bunkum that the cigarette manufacturers tell you that cigarette smoking is addictive. I can tell you from personal experience that I went from 60 a day to nothing overnight with no withdrawal symptoms, and I was smoking Marlboro Red. Now, if nicotine really is physically addictive and not just psychologically addictive, and I realise that many of you may want to have an argument with me about this, but from my personal experience, I managed to give up overnight 60 a day to nothing without any experience, side effects, no excess eating, but it was about changing habits and playing a game with myself. And it was just, how long can I go without a cigarette? So if you know of anybody who's been a 12-step program, their whether it's for drugs or alcohol or food addiction or whatever it is, their mantra is just for today. I think today's a long time, and I think it's so that what I used, and I didn't do a 12-step program, is just for the next 10 minutes. Can I go without a cigarette for the next 10 minutes? And I managed to get through a whole day just going from 10 minutes to 10 minutes to 10 minutes. And again, if anybody wants any help, let me know, because that's the sort of thing that we can do through NLP. I'll stop talking about that. Time. You've got to have enough time to sleep. When is bedtime? So what we find is that people who have very, very regular bedtimes sleep much better than those that don't. And it's really useful for you to discover when you need to go to bed to get the best night's sleep. So I did this sort of like game exploration to find out for me when is the best time for me to go to bed. And I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock. At a push, with just 1 or 2 nights, I can push it out to 10:30. But if I want a good night's sleep and to wake up refreshed, energized, to be able to think properly, I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock. Now, because I need to be in bed by 10 o'clock, that doesn't mean you need to be. For you, it might be 9:30, it might be 11 o'clock. That is about you finding out what your structure is. What time do you need to go to bed and what time do you need to get up? And when you can get into that regular system, you will find that it's much your quality of sleep is much better. I had a client that claimed that he only needed about 3 or 4 hours sleep a night. And he was up until 2 o'clock and he was kidding himself. And unfortunately, he was not able to recognize the negative impacts of being chronically sleep deprived. He really believed that he was functioning well. Unfortunately, it cost him his marriage. So please don't delude yourself if you are chronically sleep deprived. So I haven't put this on here as one of the things that once this period of time has ended, if you are only sleeping 3, 4 hours a night and you are chronically sleep deprived, there are very, very few people that really can function on that small amount of sleep. You probably ought to get it checked out by a sleep clinic to make sure that you don't have any um, sleep problems. And obviously, I realise that that's not going to happen at least for another 3 months. Um, so work on all this stuff, and if this stuff doesn't work and you're still not sleeping properly, that needs to be excluded. Um, bedroom hygiene. There's a very flippant phrase that we often talk about is that your bedroom should only be used for sleeping in and sex. And just declutter it to make sure that it is just clean and there is no clutter, distractions at either a physical level or an energetic level. So, and I know this for myself, that I break the rules and I bring stuff in and I let books creep in, and all of a sudden all that stuff takes up space in my head, and then I have to go, right, go back, clean it all out, clean your room out, and make sure that you have only got what you absolutely need in your bedroom. Obviously, a little bit of nice decoration is appropriate, but please don't bring computers and um, laptops and games and all that sort of stuff into your and make sure that when you're looking at the environment of your bedroom, again, you are going to be um, using what you've got at the moment, but good mattresses, good pillows to make sure that you are really comfortable and really well supported. And getting the temperature right. Actually, for many people that they find a colder bedroom actually encourages sleep much better than a warm bedroom. So quite here somewhere that I think it's the optimum sleep temperature has been shown to be around 20 degrees. For some of you, for me, that's certainly way too hot. But again, find out for yourself what is the optimum temperature for you to sleep in. And it may be that actually, for you to get a better night's sleep, you need to turn the radiators off. For me to sleep well, my room is pretty much like an ice box. And I get in underneath the duvet, and so long as the rest of the room is cold, that works for me. Just because it works for me doesn't mean it works for you. It's just that many studies have demonstrated that a cooler room rather than a warmer room is more effective. And then we come on to just relaxing before you go to bed. I don't have children. I have put my niece and nephew to bed. And I know that with children, that actually the bedtime regime can possibly take up to 2 hours. because we start to calm them down. We start to prepare them so that by the time they get to bed, they are relaxed and peaceful and ready to sleep. And then somehow we grow up as adults and forget to do that. So now we've got more time in our lives. We've got an opportunity to develop new rituals. So sitting down, meditation is a really, really good way to still your thoughts. Um, if you're new to meditation, there are some phenomenal apps out there. Um, One that I use and I think is brilliant is one called Headspace. I know there is a free version of it on the App Store, and then you can upgrade it to a paid version. I think there's an Apple one called Calm, and certainly it's something that I find really useful. I find it very difficult to sit quietly and meditate on my own. However, when I've got some earbuds in and somebody talking me through sitting and being silent, something so there's nothing going on, somehow that's got much greater structure to it. And we can have a conversation at another time if you wanted to about meditation. But for now, I'm just going to suggest get yourself into a ritual where you can start to calm yourself down, make use of the resources that are available on the internet. Sometimes I will use from YouTube a hypnosis induction. I've done hypnosis myself, and yet, even though I'm a hypnotherapist and I can do self inductions, I still find it easier for somebody else to do the induction for me. So there's a guy out there on the internet, Michael Seeley, who is somebody that I really respect and admire. Obviously, you do need to be careful about who you choose as hypnotherapists. If you're just going randomly on the internet because you don't know what the unconscious um, commands that could be being embedded. So it might be that if you're interested in hypnotherapy, I know hypnotherapists are still working. They can work with you online. They can create hypnotherapy inductions. So that's another way that you can begin to calm yourself down. Sleep, relaxating baths and showers is obviously another very, very popular one. And again, given what we've said about temperature and and this comes down to your core body temperature. So when you want a good night's sleep, you want to begin to decrease your core body temperature. So rather than a baking hot bath just before you go to bed, maybe something that's a little bit cooler and has got some essential oils in it, some soporific essential oils will also help. And again, then we come on to supplements. There may be some supplements that you find really useful to help you sleep. Melatonin is a really good one. You can get that on the internet. Make sure you get really good sources. You can also, I think, get it on prescription, but obviously contacting your doctors at the moment, although a very good doctor friend of mine is still in doing consultations, they may not consider it's an emergency. But melatonin, other people find herbs, things like ginkgo biloba, you drink it as a tea about an hour before bedtime. Glycine is an amino acid. Some studies have shown that if you take 3 grams of glycine a day, that will help. Valerian root, again, valerian you can get as an essential oil that will also help improve the quality of sleep. Magnesium, L-theanine, another amino acid. Lavender, obviously, you're all probably all very familiar with. So certainly the essential oils, you can either consume them or use them as drops on your pillows or in atomizers around your room. So you're creating a soporific environment. And journaling. Journaling is just so powerful because I know for so many of you at the moment, you've got things that are going round and round your head, round and round your head. Journaling is just a great way to get them out. You can also use this as maybe part of your peacetime, calming down. And I know I'm certainly speaking with clients at the moment to be using journaling so that they are recording their thought patterns. So at some point in the future, if they are asked to justify why they went into work or why they didn't go into work or whatever they did with patients, it's the justification behind the thought process which is going to be important. So journaling is going to be really useful. And so one of the things that I find really useful when it comes to journaling, and I am going to be really honest again, journaling isn't one of my go-to places. Journaling for me is something which is, I have to work at it. And when I do it, it does work. And the structure that I like is I'm free flow journaling really doesn't come naturally to me. For some of you on the the call, it may do, and you just write and write and write and write and write, and you don't lift your pen off the paper. For me, it's much more reflective, and I talk about the 21-day positive focus, where I start to think about what are the minimum of 3 things that I'm most proud of achieving today. For some of you that are finding that your days aren't productive, you might want to be including this. What are the things that I am proud of? Why am I most proud of them? What can I do to build on this tomorrow? And what specifically can I do? And again, the internet is the most amazing source to help you journal if you find that it is useful for you to help you sleep. I find it does, but it's one of those things that I have to actively go, I've got to journal. Other people just love it and do it all the time. And then what I want you to think about is what you're feeding your brain. Many people will say that when we go to sleep, our brain replays and focuses on the stuff that we were looking at, listening to, experiencing in somewhere between the last 45 minutes and an hour and a half before we go to bed. So this is probably a message to say, please don't watch the news just before you go to bed. Because if you're watching the news and it's all doom and gloom, that's what your brain is going to be focusing on whilst you're trying to sleep. So start to think about 2 hours before you go to bed and start thinking about what is it that you're feeding your brain. So going back to journaling, it might be that one of the things that you do, start thinking about, what am I thankful for? What am I grateful for? And what do I feel blessed for? And I've set up a Facebook group that you can share those things today on there. But that's something, start feeding your brain the good stuff, the happy stuff, the rewarding stuff, the abundant stuff, the love-filled stuff of gratitude, and give your brain that to feed on and process rather than the newspapers and the television and the radio. So that's our S. And then we come on to L. And L is all about lighting. Now, these next few are going to be a bit quicker than the sleep habits. I know we've only got 20 minutes left, but the lighting is all about making sure that the lighting you're living with emulates natural daylight, because we've got our natural biorhythms. and we need to emulate them. So when it starts to get dark, make it darker. If you've got during the day and you need lights on, that's when you use the natural daylight. Make morning light in the morning and daytime light in the daytime, and make it darker. Blackout blinds will be really, really key when you come to going to sleep. So there's no chinks of light. And going back to, we were talking about melatonin supplements, your melatonin levels will go down if there's light in your bedroom. And certainly one of the things that I have found really useful is I've got one of those alarm clocks that wakes you up with the natural daylight. So it's a very, very natural way of doing it, rather than just being woken up by an alarm clock. Turn off your screens, and all the blue light that is emitted from your television screens, your computer screens, your phones, just turn off the blue lights, because blue light is a daylight color and it gets into your brain, and your brain thinks it's daytime and it needs to be awake. And we'll talk about that more in a moment. So our second E in sleep is about electronics, and this in essence is about getting rid of the blue light. So I don't know whether any of you have come across Rangan Chatterjee. He does an awful lot of stuff about this in his books and his work, and he talks about sleep hygiene too. And for him, it is a massive thing. He's a medical practitioner from up near Manchester. He recognizes how much sleep deprivation we have and how much of it is associated with our electronics. So we need to turn them off. So make sure you're turning them off at least 2 hours before you go to bed. If you absolutely can't turn off your screens, think about using these amber glasses. So the amber glasses will block out all the blue light, so that your brain begins to think it's nighttime. And you can use the settings on your phone, the nighttime settings. Again, because the telephone companies are now aware of the negative impact of the blue lights on the screens, they will make sure they have built in these nighttime modes. Please use them. Turn off your TV. Just give your brain time to sleep. So it's not just about us sleeping physically, but we need to give our brain that sleep time, rather than stimulating it, making it thinking it's early morning or middle of the day. So then we come on to E, exercise. And I know that we're only allowed to go out once a day at the moment, and you can exercise internally. But E is about, our second E in sleep is all about exercise. Exercise is absolutely crucial to you being able to sleep well. And again, you've got to find out what works for you. So very, very early in the morning, research shows that starting off with some gentle stretching, yoga, Pilates is a really good way to gently wake your body up. Maybe doing some sun salutations just to wake your body up. And then that repetitive, in more endurance style exercise, that running, cycling, not so much gym work here, but the running, the cycling, I haven't included swimming. We would normally include that. These sort of repetitive type exercises are absolutely key when it comes to mental well-being. And the research shows that with these sorts of exercise, obviously you can't swim at the moment unless you're fortunate to have your own pool, but the running, the cycling, the gym work is key to helping you sleep, and it's much more effective if you do it during the day in daylight rather than going um, rather than going back to bed before you go to bed, because again this is about core temperature. So strenuous exercise is going to raise your core temperature, which is then going to make it much more difficult for you to go to sleep. Whereas at the night time, and this photograph is taken on a Jason Vale juicing retreat in Turkey. And it is absolutely beautiful. They've got a veranda, well, a big sort of platform. And as the sun goes down, we do yoga. And yoga in the evening, just simple stretching, not that really hard and fast, almost aerobic yoga. Just this time you're probably doing moon salutations just to calm yourself down and prepare your body to be still and go to sleep. So that's our E. Find the exercise regime. And I know that at the moment we've got to be conscious that we can't go outside more than once a day. And then we come on to P. And P is about practicing NLP. So NLP is, for me, it's the fundamentals of my coaching, and it's the user manual of your brain. And what I'd like to do is to take you through an exercise. And I know there's some people on the call that I talked through this particular exercise last night. I'm really sorry that I'm doing it again, but you can take it to the next level. So what I'd like to do is take you through an exercise because it's not about what you think, it's all about how you think. And most of us are not conscious about how we think. And when we realize and recognize how we are thinking, how our brain is working, how our internal representation is, how our physiology is, when we are worrying, then we can do something about it. Because when we think about a state, and we often think about negative states, but we can have positive states too, that those negative states, worry, anxiety, fear, anger, frustration, they all have with them an internal representation and a physiology. So if we would take, for example, depression, you can never be depressed if you're looking up and your head's up and you've got a really bright smile on your face and your eyes are looking upwards. You can't be depressed with that physiology. So equally, pay attention to your physiology when you are anxious, worried, frustrated, angry. Also be aware of what's your physiology when you're happy, you're glad, you're grateful. And as soon as you find yourself disappearing into those states which are less supportive for you and could even sabotage you, make a change. Look at some of Amy Cuddy's stuff on YouTube, and she talks about power positions, the Superman. Use your physiology to determine your thought pattern. But what I'd like to guide you through is give you some ideas about the internal representations. So I took a client through this earlier in the week. She was beside herself with fear and anxiety and absolutely paralyzed by it. I spent an hour with her going through this. We're going to spend about 8 minutes. And at the end of that, she said, "Thank you so much for a more than valuable session today. In this uncontrollable circumstance, it was great to understand all things I control." I would recommend anyone to have a session with yourself, especially in times like this. Thanks again. It was so helpful. You'll be hearing from me again. So I spent about an hour going through this with Miriam. We're going to go through this in about 8 minutes. I'm going to give you an idea. Like I've said for myself, I find even as a hypnotherapist, it's easier if somebody does an induction for me. As a master NLP coach, I know the tools and I still find it easier if somebody else takes me through the process. And even my tutors, my mentors, my trainers from all over the world, some of the biggest names, Robert Dilts, Susie Smith, Tim Halbum, they still say, yeah, okay, we know that we're some of the best in the world, but when it comes to doing a process, we need somebody else to go through it with us, to guide us through it. So I put that offer out there about help. So if you want some help one-to-one, please just pick up the phone and book a session with me. So for those of you that are new to this, I'd like you to think about something that caused you worry or fear at a level of about 3. We're not going to go anything more scary, worrisome, anxious in causing any more than 3. Something that's easy to manage. For those of you that know this process, you can raise it up and you can choose something that's about 5. But once you've got your subject, your situation that causes you a mild to moderate concern, I want you to focus on how you think about it, not what you're thinking. It's got nothing to do with the content. It's got everything to do with the structure. So as you think about this subject, are you involved in it or watching it from a distance? Are you associated or disassociated? And whichever you are, change it. And notice what happens to your level of concern or worry or anxiety. Did you start off associated or disassociated and change it? Similarly, when you think about this situation, the colours that come into your head, are they in colour? Are they in black and white? Are they sepia? Are they bright colours, pastel colours? Whatever they are, change them round because you can do this. And notice what happens to your emotional response. Do you have one picture or many images? Notice what you notice and alter it. Is it near? Is it far? Is it in front of you? Is it behind you? Is it to the left of you? To the right of you? And that's the pictures. Then we think about the noises. Are they loud? Are they quiet? And all I want you to do is change them. And as you change them, notice how your response changes. And then we pay attention to the feelings that we have when we're anxious, fearful, whatever the word is that you're using. Where in your body are you experiencing it? Some it might be the chest, the stomach, shoulders, neck. Where do you experience your fear? What texture does it have? Does it have a movement? Is it clockwise or anti-clockwise? Just change them. Change them to something which is more comfortable. If it's got a movement, does it move fast? Does it move slow? And for each of you, it's going to be slightly different. But change it so it's more comfortable. And that feeling, what I want you to do is take it out. Often I have to actually grab in and get it. Sometimes I use a metaphorical hose, because for me, generally, when I want to calm things down, I have to move them to my left and far behind me. It may be different for you, particularly if you learn to read and write in an Arabic or non-English language. So wherever you put the picture, is it large, is it small, shrink it down, whatever, and put it wherever you put it. Take the feelings out and put it in the picture, not in you. And because nature abhors a vacuum, fill that space with a white, healing, loving light. And let that white, healing, loving light just fill the rest of your body. And as you do that, just notice that that situation that initially was causing an emotional response at a level 3, notice what it is now. When I did this with some clients online last night, very quickly we went from a 3 to a 0. Once you've learned the structure of the process, you can then be a little bit bolder, and you can choose those situations that are causing you anxiety of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And again, I'm going to suggest that if you want to go through this process and you want me to support you through this, all you have to do is pick up the phone, and I am going to be there to help you, because I've been doing NLP for 15 years. And when I've got a problem, I still need to pick up the phone and to one of my colleagues to help them through them. So that help is there. The phone number's at the bottom. I really do trust that I've given you lots of different things that you can build into a new structure, because your days are going to be different now. And whether it's helping you go through NLP or just talking through whatever's going on for you at the moment, I'm here for you. And build the stuff in that we've been talking about, so you've got a nice new structure to what you're doing. So thank you for participating. If you've got any questions for me, please feel free just to unmute yourself, ask questions, and we can do that. Does anybody have any questions? No. Well, if nobody, oh, hang on, somebody's unmuted. Did you have a question? Can't hear you.
Yeah, I've got a question about how do you... Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can, yes. No,
how do you deal with... Hello?
Hello, I can hear you, yes.
Okay. How do you deal with, for example, particularly being lots of women in this in the environment who are constantly scared and constantly listening to the news and constantly sort of getting themselves worried when you're trying to project a positive sort of outlook on things. You're also a bit scared, but trying not to focus on the negative, but they're constantly bombarding you with stuff.
Okay.
How do you influence them as such, other than being with yourself?
Okay. First of all, I would just turn the radio off, turn the television off, don't watch it. Choose the resources, the sources of information that you know are to be trusted, and turn everything else off, because otherwise it's just noise. And if you are surrounding yourself with people who have got negativity, actually it's just about asking them politely, please, I'm trying to stay positive in this situation. I understand you're anxious, and demonstrate to them that you can manage your state. I don't think this has got anything to do with gender, because men are anxious and fearful too. They just express it in a different way. Some of them won't even acknowledge that they are anxious, and they are. So I don't think gender's got anything to do with it. If it's you personally you're talking about, that it is focusing on not what you're thinking on, it is about how you're thinking, because in each of these situations we could be thinking about COVID as a problem, We could be thinking about it as a challenge. We can be thinking about it as an opportunity. And it's our choice what we focus on. Because there's in our heads, I like to think of there's two people. There's a thinker and a prover. And the thinker can think whatever they like. They can think, oh my goodness me, this is the worst thing that can ever happen. They can think like chicken licking and the sky is going to fall in. And they can think, that's it, I'm never going to do day's dentistry ever again in my life. I'm never going to have a penny to my name. I'm never going to be able to buy a house. I'm never going to have this. I'm never going to have that. The thinker can think whatever they like. They could also think, do you know what? I've got the most amazing opportunity. I've got time to do things that I've wanted to do, but I've never done. Most of us have got a room or a cupboard in our house that needs to be tidied up, and we somehow don't do it. Most of us, or many of us now, have got opportunities to spend time with family. They may be in the same house of us. We may be connecting with them via our technology. We can be saying, oh, goodness me, this is an opportunity to catch up with friends that I haven't seen before or haven't seen for a long time. You could be thinking, do you know what? This is an opportunity for me to build relationships with my patients. The thinker in your head can think whatever they like. The prover has one job, and the prover's job is to prove the thinker right. So whatever you choose to think, anything that doesn't agree with that thought pattern, you won't see. It will just be deleted. So if somebody is choosing to be chicken licking, that is all they will see. But if you choose to be somebody that says, do you know what, at the moment, I am thankful, I am grateful, and I am blessed, and that's what I'm going to think. The prover has to prove that. And that might be where you go in your journal. And if you're surrounded by people who are chicken lickings, then it just becomes a game. Is that you engage them with it and you use the example. Okay, what's your thinker thinking? Well, okay, let's prove it. And if it's in a family, let's start a family, a thankful, grateful, blessed. Let's start counting our blessings today. And please feel free, use my Facebook group, because I tell you, it is beautiful going on there, because there's not one mention of COVID. There is pictures of animals and flowers and sunshine and the most amazing things, and people are going, do you know what, life's great. And it's what you choose it to be. Does that help?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And if you need some help, just pick up the phone and I'm here. I can help you through it. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. In which case, I've overrun. I'm sorry for being disrespectful of your time. I really wish you every success and happiness. Tools down, skills up. Have a great time. And I'm here if you need me. Make the most of these 2 weeks, 2 months. You'll look back. I promise you. When I sold the practice, I realized I should have just taken 6 months sabbatical, because I look back and I thought, you know what, I should have taken 6 months sabbatical. There was so much more I could have done if I'd used my time wisely. So make the most of this. Don't find yourself in a year's time where you go, oh, do you know what, I wish I had done. I could have done it. Okay.
Thanks, Jane.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Take care.
Take care. Take
Bye.
care all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.